Thank you so much. Now you may have a little rest.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. So happy May the 4th. And you've probably all heard that kind of cute little blessing. May the 4th be with you. And it reminded me. I knew I shouldn't have done it. It reminded me about my husband, who was an English teacher. And as an English teacher, he was very, very fond of metaphors. And he used to dismiss his class with, "Metaphors be with you." So that's why we have the title of the talk today, Metaphors Be With You. So a metaphor is a figure of speech in which a word or phrase is applied to an object or action to which it is not literally applicable, something regarded as representative or symbolic of something else. That was the definition. In other words, metaphors give us the ability to express concepts that we cannot express, inexpressible, ineffable things. Metaphors allow us to do that by making us think about something else and then relating it back to the thing, right? So we use metaphors all the time in our lives without really realizing we're doing it, being conscious of it. Things like we describe ourselves as perhaps a night owl. I have a green thumb. She has a heart of gold. I'm a bull in a china shop. Those are all metaphors. We just use them. We use them when we're describing feelings in our body, especially feelings of pain. It's a stabbing pain like a knife, right? It's a grabbing pain. It's a clawing pain. All those things, they're all metaphors. Even the warm, fuzzy feeling that feels like a big warm hug or a warm blanket. Metaphors all over the place, right? We use them to describe our emotions and feelings. I'm floating on air. I'm on cloud 9. I'm in heaven. I'm in hell. I'm happy as a pig in shit, right? Yeah, right? We use metaphors all the time. Come on, that's not such a grown-up thing. And to a great extent, it depends a lot on our cultural understandings, the milieu we live in. I recall watching a colleague of mine vainly trying to describe to our Japanese owner and boss what he meant by "don't throw the baby out with bathwater." And the more he talked, the deeper another metaphor, the deeper he dug himself into a hole, right? So many of our morality stories, our teaching stories, use metaphors. The little train that could. It's a metaphor that teaches children to persevere, to be confident, to use affirmations. The turtle and the hare, metaphors, teaching tales, teaching us lessons about, slow and steady does it. The boy who cried wolf, people who live in glass houses, all metaphors. So metaphors give our minds something concrete and tangible to get hold of. When we sit with it for a little while, it might lead us to a deeper understanding of the ineffable that we're trying to understand that way. It's the bridge that's a metaphor, a bridge between the known and the unknown. Bridge over troubled waters, another great metaphor. So they're very useful in the realm of religion and spirituality to explain what it is we're trying to explain, right? So I thought we could review this morning a few metaphors that we use and to try and convey what New Thought teaching is all about. And the first one, said the caterpillar looking up to the butterfly, "You'll never get me up in one of those things." That's the metamorphosis metaphor. Say that 5 times. So we use that as a metaphor for our personal transformation, right? I don't know about you, but in my 30s, I was definitely a caterpillar. And sometime in my 40s, I started to sprout wings and grow, and my wings can still get bigger and prettier, but I'm definitely transformed. I'm metamorphosed. We talk about the oak tree within the acorn. And actually, the perfect pattern of the oak tree is literally inside the acorn, isn't it? But that's generally another, the DNA in our own genetic code. The journey metaphor is a big, big one, the journey metaphor. The transformation is about the journey. We all say that, don't we? It's not the destination, it's the journey. It's not instant transformation. It's a slow process, and that's a metaphor that encourages us to be patient and persevere, use our powers of understanding and our power of will, perhaps. The hero's journey is the ultimate journey as a metaphor. The hero's journey, the hero's quest, we've all heard that, known as the monomyth, because it's the common template for all of the stories that involve a hero who goes on an adventure and overcomes odds and has a victory and then comes back transformed, right? Most of you would probably have heard Joseph Campbell's teaching on this. He expands the hero's journey into steps. That it begins with living in the ordinary life, hearing the call to adventure, call to service, whatever the call is. Sometimes supernatural aid comes along, and then there's the threshold. That's the beginning of the journey, when you make the commitment, when you step out. Then there's the gathering of helpers and mentors, the meeting and overcoming challenges and temptations, the abyss, possibly death and rebirth, and the crisis climax of every story leads to the transformation, atonement, and return to ordinary life with a gift to give back to humanity. That's the hero's journey, according to Joseph Campbell. And certainly, the story of Jesus' life is the hero's journey, is it not? Perfectly illustrated. With the call, meeting the apostles, and the challenges, the death and rebirth, but almost all of our stories and movies and everything, even some of our songs, are based on that hero's journey. So it's a great metaphor, and we can relate to that to share our individual journey, because every one of us in our life is on a hero's journey, aren't we? And sometimes it's a circle of circles of many small hero's journeys and transformations in our life. So the next one I want to talk about is the hologram metaphor. Now, I don't really understand holograms. I used to be able to kind of explain this, but what I know is that if you take a photograph, an ordinary photograph of, say, a rose, and cut it into 4 pieces, you'll get 4 quarters with, petals in this one and stems and leaves in that one and so forth. But if you cut a holographic photograph in 4, you get 4 perfect roses, 1/4 the size of the whole. And that's got something to do with lasers and interference patterns and all that. But isn't it a great metaphor for who we are as related to the divine? We have 4 complete roses, according to the pattern. But each of us, each individual contains the essence of the entire universe, just as each of those 4 quarters contains the essence of the rose. So that's a beautiful metaphor that I love. And it's very similar to the wave in the ocean metaphor. You've heard that one, I'm sure. The wave is the ocean expressing itself. The ocean isn't in the wave, and in fact entirely in each drop of seawater, right? That's our relationship with the divine. And then there's the computer metaphor, about how our brains are computers, right? They're processing all this data, and they have a programmed beliefs through which we process the data, just like your computer does. And sometimes we need to install a new operating system, don't we? A new belief system. That's why we're here. That's what we're working on. And we just need to turn it off sometimes, because we know that everything will start again if you turn it off for 10 minutes or 10 seconds, right? Just unplug, have a meditation, breathe, and reboot. But we're always replacing our operating system and revising it. Sometimes we need to wipe the computer, which is what they say when they take the old operating system out altogether. So our minds are like a computer. Our brains are like a computer, not our minds. I was watching something last night that reminded me that although scientists will try and tell us this, the brain does not give rise to the mind. The brain is a filter. He called it a step-down reducing valve that steps down the amount of consciousness that's coming at us so that we can process it. That's what our brain does. But our mind, consciousness, is infinite. So think of your brain as a filter. The river metaphor. How often we say a river flows constantly through time and space. We flow through time and space, and maybe the time and space flows through us. I don't know, it's pretty hard to understand all that, isn't it? But a river takes the easiest route. It finds the route for where it needs to go. And our life is doing that too, isn't it? The river needs to get to the ocean. We need to get to transformation. And also we know that in a river, there are rocks. And if the rocks have hard edges, they will cause turbulence in the river. But a river flows smoothly over smooth rocks, right? So it behooves us to smooth out our edges a little bit, doesn't it? Doesn't it? And we find our way home as well. And probably the most new thought, the best metaphor, is the planting of the seed metaphor. This is Unity's law of mind action, which is 3 words, right? Somebody knows them? First word? Mind. Mind. Second word? Idea. Third word? Manifestation or expression. Mind, idea, expression. So mind is the soil. Ideas or thoughts are the seeds. We plant an idea in the fertile soil of our unconscious mind, or subconscious mind, and what? It naturally grows. That's what it does. Now, we can water it with affirmations, we can weed it with denials, but it grows. We plant an idea in mind, it grows, just as the seed grows in the ground. Isn't that a beautiful metaphor, really? And so simple. The life as a lesson metaphor. Life is a classroom. We often hear that, right? We come here to learn. We have specific lessons, we have specific assignments, and when we're finished them, and not before we're finished them, we graduate. So the metaphor of death as graduation, of challenges and struggles as lessons, very helpful, right? All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely actors thereon. A Shakespearean metaphor, but that leads us to a whole bunch of more metaphors, such as who's producing, who's directing your life, who's writing the script of your life, who are the actors and characters in your life, and who's casting them, and who's the crew that's keeping everything together, and who's your audience. What a metaphor. All the world's a stage. And then, of course, there's the God metaphors. We have so many metaphors about God, right? God is dictator, God is boss, God is disciplinarian, God is father, God is judge. Not really, but that's another talk, right? And the Jesus metaphors. Jesus used metaphors constantly. I am the light. You are the light. Don't hide your light under a bushel. I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry. The bread is a metaphor for truth and meaning. Coming to me means listening to me, following what I'm teaching and learning from it. And hungry isn't physical hunger at all, it's spiritual hunger, right? Metaphors everywhere, just some of the ones that are in the Bible. The Good Shepherd. Remember the story of the shepherd who had 100 sheep and one got lost and he left the 99 to go find the one? That's a metaphor about serving those in need, the littlest of these, right? The fisher of men, he told his apostles, ye shall be fishers of men. He said, I am the vine, you are the branches. See, all of these are some way of giving our mind something to hold on to that maybe leads us to an understanding. Possibly can't be put into words, but nevertheless, it's an instinctive inner gut understanding of what we're trying to say. So metaphors are very, very useful. But the problem can be that we risk falling into literal interpretation of them. And when I was in Vancouver a couple of weeks ago, I used the story of the little train that could, and they seemed to like it, so I'll do it again. So everybody's heard the story of the little train that could. We've read the story, our grandparents all told the story, we embellished it, we acted it out, we choo-chooed around the house. Maybe one day they declared a stat holiday, the little train that could day off, you know. And 16 generations down the road, we're so enthused with this story that we start to believe there really was once a little train that could talk. And once we have that belief, now we have to create miracles to explain how that came about. What created the little train? Where did it come from? And what miracle happened that allowed the train to talk? And I referenced that back to the Easter story because it was Easter. And the way the message of Jesus has sometimes got lost in the story. Where the truth of the little train, you know, the message got lost in this story. And to some extent in the Easter story, the message of Jesus also got lost and it became about the story. Because Jesus' message was pretty straightforward, right? Love one another, be humble, be kind. Some of that seems to have got lost in the story. Just interesting. And then we have religious paradoxes. Now, while a metaphor is a word or phrase that refers to another thing as similar, a paradox, on the other hand, not really, it's another metaphor, is a seemingly self-contradictory proposition that reveals a deeper meaning on exploration. So, an apparent contradiction that is really true. And someone said, Christianity is actually the religion of paradox, the Trinity, that God is human, that life comes from death, that achievement comes through failure, that folly is wisdom, that happiness is to mourn, that to find one must lose, and that the greatest are the smallest. Some of the paradoxes that the Bible presents. Somebody told me Buddhism itself is a paradox, a religion with no God. So the paradox leads to another truth for me, that opposites are simply sides of one another, that we can't know life and light unless we know the darkness, that we can't have the experience of day without the experience of night. We understand that within summer is winter and within winter is spring. So we know that wisdom and knowledge exist, although we may be surrounded at the moment by ignorance. Wisdom and knowledge are within that ignorance. Good is always available, though we may be experiencing only evil, because out of evil comes good. Out of chaos comes order. That's the basis of our affirmative prayer, isn't it? And that based on the perfect awareness of God, the essence, the love, the truth, is always everywhere. It's always everywhere. But we have to reach into the evil or whatever's going on to find it. We have to choose it. You know, the good and evil like this, I've said this many times, we have to choose. It's all around us all the time. So we have to reach into the chaos to find the order. We have to reach into the hate to find our love. Although when someone once said the opposite of love is not hate, it's actually apathy. That's interesting too, isn't it? Let us reach into our own apathy, reach into our own hearts to find our own hope, our own love, and our own compassion. Because metaphors are always with us. And the big meta stands for the biggest, right? So the meta force, aren't I clever, is always with us.